What is it about being in your midlife that creates a crisis?
It's one of two things.
You know, for our generation, we had 9/11, we had financial crisis of 2008, we had COVID.
Something else that happens that makes you evaluate where you're at.
I was questioning the dog thing for my daughters too, because they love dogs.
A dog is nice, and you guys are crazy for not already having one.
Your daughters are actually texting William right now, being like, tell him to say yes.
We are the Midlife Crisisses, 3 crises all here together. I am one of the co-hosts, Tyson Apostol. I have with me, I would say, the greatest underwater photographer of the entire state of Colorado.
Whole state.
Absolutely. I am William Drumm. I'm Billie Eilish's personal underwater photographer, and I'm in the middle of about a dozen midlife crises. So what up?
That's right. And I'm Bradley Hasemayer, and I only listen to Billie Eilish. I've never photographed her underwater. I'm a content creator, father of 2, 44 years old, and I like that, Tyson. Yet, let's put that on the bucket list.
Dream
I think
big.
We can make that happen.
Well, you have connections now. So
Right.
if like William can't make the shoot, Bradley.
Hello, I've got a GoPro and a will. Where there's a will and a GoPro, there's a way.
That really is at least half the battle.
Where there's a William, there's a way.
Oh boy. I think we should just end. How does it get better than that? That was Tyson just shot it right at the top.
Yeah. We answer our own questions about our midlife crises, and Bradley has a question for us today.
Yeah.
What is it, Bradley?
So my question is a bit existential.
Okay. I'll try to get there.
Great. Home. Namaste. Namaste. Go. And it really revolves around the title of our entire podcast, Midlife Crisis. What is it about being in your midlife that creates a crisis? You could identify what you think those crises are, and maybe go backwards and figure out what that is. But why does everyone experience the midlife crisis? What is it about our midlife that creates the crisis? And, you know, we joke on the show a lot about the crises that we're in, but those are universal from the standpoint of like everyone starts kind of looking around. Why is that? What is it about the midlife? What starts happening around us? What starts happening in us or to us or whatever that creates this moment? So I want to throw that out there for you guys because it basically is why we have a show. So,
yeah,
that's good.
I
like
had
that.
something pop in my head, but if William's ready to go, then
I'm not necessarily ready to go, but that's a really good question. And it's like, because there's the external things, the obvious challenges that happen around midlife, but then there's also like the secondary component, which is more just your understanding of who you are and your understanding of what your life is, and that's shifting. So it's a good question, and I'm stoked to answer it, but you go ahead, Tyson.
Okay. I have always, like, this is the first time it's been posed to me, but I've always understood, and just like without even really contemplating it, like I haven't ever stepped back and be like, why is this? It seems like there's a moment in most people's life where it's one of two things. They either get stagnant and realize that they're stagnant and want to make changes. So they're like, oh, I haven't been working out for years and years and years, and I want to get healthy again. I deserve getting a new Camaro because I've done everything for my family for the last 20 years. Or there's the regret, remorse of not being as successful as the Joneses across the street or whatever.
Right.
And there's almost a panic to catch up to what you think success is to either society or yourself. And you haven't reached that and are now like, how do I get there? I'm not there yet, and I'm in the middle of my life. So I think that those probably two things, or maybe a combination of those two things in any measurement, is kind of it. I know that for me, like, we joke about midlife crises a lot, and that's like the whole thing here. It's not a joke, but for me, it's mostly the stagnant thing where it's like I was doing a lot of things. I kind of pulled back from that as I'm raising kids and have just like become more of a homebody And now I'm like, I should get out more. I've made a goal to try and get out more, to try and do more things on my own, even if I'm missing my family or feeling like I'm should be including them on everything. Like, I don't have to include them on everything. I include them on a lot of things. So I think that, I think that's what it is everyone just gets to that point in their life around that time where those two things, one of the two or both of them, hit them like just a realization over, a short amount of time, and then they try to fix it quickly.
Yeah, totally. But that's funny because what I was thinking of with that was like pretty different. Like, I'm thinking of kind of more a death of somebody close to you, a divorce, something else that happens to you that makes you evaluate where you're at. So it's kind of like the opposite side of the spectrum from where you're coming from, Tyson, because that's more about being in the same spot and then taking a look at where you are and realizing that, hey, there's these things that I thought that I would do, that I want to do, that I should have done, and then making quick changes because of that. But then really what I was thinking about is like kind of the total opposite. Like, you have the health scare, just some sort of event that triggers it. So, that's why I love this podcast, because like I feel like so often we have such different perspectives on the same thing, and it's super fun to talk about.
Yeah, because I think it's almost like there's a pivot point, right? Like, I think both of you guys are touching on this idea of like, you kind of wake up and you're like, and you kind of poke your head up and start looking around. But I feel like, for our generation, we had 9/11. I think it was a big one for a lot of people. We had financial crisis of 2008. We had COVID in 2020. So there have been these moments along the way, but it hasn't
crash as well. Yeah.
Right. Housing market crash as well. But there hasn't been that same, to me, there hasn't been the same kind of like poke your head up and look around as now I feel that in my mid 40s. So I think there is a bit of like you were talking about, Tyson, kind of like you've been doing the same thing, kind of going at the grind. And I also find it interesting that maybe it's just because it's talked more about, but I'm gonna interview my wife later, ask her. But I feel like this feels very male, that the midlife crisis certainly could be genderless. Anybody could feel it, but I hear it more from my male friends. I don't hear it as much. So I wonder what the thought is with that. Is it the success thing that you were talking about, Tyson? Or, is it just kind of like, dudes are always competitive and like all of a sudden we look around and we're not where we thought we would be? Like, I don't know.
I disagree. I think it's in women as much. I see my wife and she's just like spending hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars on skin stuff, And it's like,
oh, that's a good point. The difference.
And you're going, all of a sudden she's like got like 5 gym memberships and not using any of them. And you're like, what are
the last part of that? So key. 5, not using any of them.
And you're like, what are we doing here? And it's like, and I have my own things, but she has her own things, and we're definitely attacking it differently. And I think there's part of me that takes pride in being pretty physically fit for my age, and not
you look
also
good. William and I were just talking about how good you look, Tyson.
Thank you. Yeah.
Don't tell him.
You were off the you guys called each other before?
We have another podcast. Yeah. It's just called Midlife Tyson, and it's just we talk about you.
Well, and I also think, like William said, like my ideas of what midlife crises are and his are different, but they're overlapping. There's like something that triggers that crisis, and whether it's the realization of I'm not where I want to be success-wise, I'm not where I want to be experience-wise, I'm not where I want to be fitness-wise. I'm surrounded by people who seem happier or more successful or whatever. And now I got to like also prove to everyone, including myself, that I'm as good as anybody else.
You are good enough, Tyson. You're good enough.
Are good
You're
enough.
Smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like you.
People like you. They do.
That's what they say. My dad's always surprised that people like me.
Yeah, there were 2 people yesterday who I met who liked you. So there's at least 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is that true?
No, not at all.
Oh.
Not even a little bit. Yeah.
It could have been. You didn't probably ask them.
Totally. I didn't ask them. That needs to move up higher. What's your name? Where are you from? Do you like Tyson? Those are going to be my top 3.
If you say from Survivor, there's like a 5% chance they know.
Otherwise, they just think I'm talking about like the chicken company.
Mike.
They'll have no idea. They'll be like, that show's still on. That's usually
Is that what you get a lot when you say that? They're like, oh, that's still on?
I don't say that. I purposely, because there's no worse feeling than being like, I'm recognizable. And then somebody being like, I know you from somewhere. And you're like, Survivor. And they're like, I've never seen it. And you're like, well, that's like literally the only place. So if you're saying you know me and we've never crossed paths anywhere, it has to be from that.
It could be your pickleball content. I mean, it's a growing sport. You're becoming the face of that and the hat of that and the glasses of that. Yeah,
that's true. So to avoid that embarrassment, even if someone's like, you look so familiar, why do you look familiar? I almost never tell them I was on TV. Almost never. I just
that's nice.
Probably went to high school or college or something. I don't know. And then that's it. And then they're left wondering. My hope is that they realize it and feel dumb.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I could have gotten a picture with the greatest Survivor player of all time.
All time.
So
forever and ever.
Yeah. So yeah. How about you, Bradley? What do you feel midlife internally yourself?
Yeah. Like I was kind of wrestling with this because I think there have been, like I talked about, these moments in my life. I mean, I remember the whole idea of like a quarter life crisis. I think John Mayer had a song about that. And it was just this idea that like, you graduate college and now what? You're like around 24, 25.
Yeah.
And right, there's this huge, like, what am I going to do with my life? Maybe you have to get a job because you've got college debt. Maybe like, are you getting married? Like all this stuff just happens so quickly. And I think a lot of people do experience this kind of like, it is a bit of a crisis because you're just like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. And then, so maybe there's something about like human evolution that like, every 20-ish years, there's like something in us that kind of pops and we're like, wait a second. I haven't looked around for a while. Oh, this is my quarter life crisis. Oh, this is my midlife crisis. I think for me, something that there's been some death around me within the past, maybe 3 months. And partly that's just getting older. You're just playing the numbers game for people who are getting cancer or going through divorces or, people who are older than you, who you just forget are older than you, whether it's parents or mentors or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, whoa, yeah, they're 80 because I'm 44. And so some of that's just natural. So I think that plays in a little bit because now all of a sudden I'm looking around at like, okay, this will end. And we talked about this a little bit too. Like this is going to be the end. Like hopefully it's a long time, right? Hopefully it is just midlife. Hopefully we got every day, because this is kind of crazy to think about too. Midlife crisis. I've thought about this too. I'm 44. If I lived every single day again, every day of Little League, T-ball, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, traveling, college, everything, I would only be 88. My grandpa died at 93. Like that's crazy to think that everything I've ever done in my life, I could do it again and still only be 88. So like there's something about that that's like really reassuring to think about every single day, all the wasted days, going to the pool as a kid, not caring and like whatever, like cutting grass for $10, like every single day that I've ever lived, I could do it again and still only be 88. So that's pretty cool to think about from that standpoint. But I think because some of this death is happening, I told you guys offline, but my best friend, his youngest son passed, and then earlier there was a dad who was in kind of this like business group that I was kind of a part of. He randomly passed on vacation with his family, and we have friends who are getting breast cancer now, and somebody else's father passed away, and so all of a sudden it's just like you're looking around like, whoa, like this is getting real. At 25 you're invincible, at 30 you're feeling pretty good, and even physically, like Tyson, like you were talking about, I feel physically great. And William, obviously you're in great shape because of what you have to do, and So I think, and also because you started your special karate.
Shaolin Kung Fu, thank you.
Shaolin Kung Fu, thank you.
Well,
Thank
getting
you.
to the ocean
Wu-Tang
from
forever.
Denver is a process.
It's a long walk. That is a long walk. So
especially when you're wearing a scuba tank. It's a pain in the ass.
Just down the freeway, just walking. Your big old flippers, just like, whoosh, whoosh. That's hilarious. Yeah, so I think some of those things are the things that kind of like shake you and wake you up. But I also wonder if it's, if it's not so much physical, what is my crisis? Is it that I feel like I should be further along? Is my crisis that I don't know what the rest of my life holds and that's scary? Or, so I'm trying to kind of figure out what that is, because those aren't the answers. With as much death going around, I think there's a part of me that, I keep seeing posts that are kind of the idea of like seize the moment, right? The carpe diem kind of idea of, especially with my kids. My daughter wants a dog, and she's talked about a dog for a long time, and we're kind of more open to that idea than before. But now I saw a post the other day. It was like, your kid wants the dog, just get the dog. And there's a part of me that's like, we should just get the dog, because it's like, life is short, and then I saw there's a documentary, a Nat Geo documentary that's on Disney Plus. Excuse me. It's about a family. I think they have 4 kids, and 3 of them have a degenerative eye disease. So they're kids. I mean, they're in their 9, 10, 11, like around those ages. And they said, we want to see everything before our eyes go, basically. So it's this travel vlog of this family that's doing everything from like in the Sahara, riding camels, they're, skydiving, they're, going to the ocean, they're seeing the wonders of the world, they're traveling and all this kind of thing. And there's a little bit of that in me that's like, what am I just waiting on? That's like, oh, maybe let's just wait a little bit longer, and then, and wisdom will teach you that nothing is promised except today, right? This could be the last podcast we do. We could do 100,000 of these, maybe not that many, but so there are no guarantees.
We spent this time with our kids.
Exactly. So you're kind of, we're all kind of kids here. We're all kids in the sandbox. Yes. But anyway, I think that there's no real answer for me for that. But those are some of the ramblings that have led me to kind of even question, what is my crisis?
Yeah. Well, with that too, it's kind of, there's almost 2 paths that you could take once you like have an event like that triggers it, where you're like, oh, because there's the one, if it's around death, it's like, oh, I need to really focus on my health, and I need to,
almost like be more careful.
Be more careful.
Go talk to an estate
opposite
lawyer.
End of the spectrum is, I could die anytime. I should go skydiving. I should go, do all this other stuff, more dangerous stuff. So that's kind of interesting to think about. The other
Who's
thing
swinging
that I
more
wanted
dangerous?
to say,
are you swinging more dangerous, William, as you get older? Are you like, let's take those swings, let's go bungee jumping and
I think a little bit.
Your life's already pretty wild.
I don't know.
You're not like an accountant
for
who's
me.
like, I'm going to get into Shaolin.
There's
You're
just
like,
some,
I wrestle
like,
crocodiles. So
there's also just like some reality stuff, like, my body being more sore and stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to actually try to take care of myself because I have to more. Yeah. But yeah, it kind of swings both ways. The other thing I wanted to say is about like men and women and if we all have midlife crises and how they appear. And I think that everybody does, for sure. I think that the men midlife crisis is kind of more stereotypical. Everybody thinks about going out and buying a sports car and whatever.
Why does it always have to be a dumb sports car?
It is.
I don't know, because that's stereotypical. It's part of the stereotype.
Camaro or Corvette, or maybe what?
911.
Exactly. Red one.
Spend the high money on the big sports car. Yeah.
But also the timing, I think, is different for men and women. Like, I think that women really start to reevaluate and go into almost their midlife crisis around the time that they turn like 30, because that's when like the odds of having a successful pregnancy start to go down, and
the biological clock is ticking.
So I think that women have one too, but I think it comes a little bit earlier, to be a gross generalization and stereotype.
Yeah, there's nobody better to talk on women's midlife crises
exactly.
than
Three
us
dudes.
three.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I would agree. So Bradley, what did you come up with? Your
Well,
midlife crisis, what is it about?
I
Where does
think,
it stem from?
like William, I swing both ways. From the standpoint of taken. We filled out, met with a lawyer. This was like 2 or 3 weeks ago to do will and estate and all that.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Good.
for us, it was a huge lift off of our shoulders because, for traveling for work and whatever, it was a lot more thorough than I expected. So if anybody's listening and they've never done this, I would highly encourage it. It's worth it. Originally, I think we did one that was like through LegalZoom or something. And I just kind of felt like we're big boys now. We have a house. We have some things that we just want to be real careful about in terms of kids going to whomever. And so that was a strange, but really powerful and necessary step. So I feel like that's good. That's in place. That feels good. I think I'm leaning more toward the like let's try more things.
Go hard.
Let's not be as careful. Yeah, I mean, look, at some point, you can't use up all your money. Then you're evicted, and it's like we had a great 3 months in Europe, but we have nowhere to live now. I'm quitting my job so we can travel the world. With what money? Didn't think about that.
We got credit cards. I got approved for 7 credit cards with $10,000 limit. We got $70,000 in credit to use for this trip.
Yeah. First stop in Vegas, done. We finished. All of the money is gone.
Yeah. God.
But a couple epic photos. Yeah, so within reason, right? But I think I'm feeling like I'm leaning more toward that, just because I've, growing up, I never really had any major death or tragedy or that kind of stuff around me. So there wasn't really a context for, my grandmother died, but she was super old. My other grandmother died. She was super old. People passed away. There was a kid in my high school, but I barely knew her. So there's like these things. So there wasn't really this desire even to look at the thought of like, how am I living my life? So I think I'm actually, through this process, even just talking it out with you guys, I think I'm finding maybe I am at least mentally leaning a little more toward like, let's do more than just like, well, I don't know if we want to spend that money. Let's just do 3 days at Disney instead of 4, because that money we could put toward, it's kind of like,
You should only do 3 days at Disney, not 4.
I won't be there
maybe
for
2.
4. I won't be there for that.
2 maximum. I would say 1 and use the rest for a real trip that you see the world.
I tell people my favorite ride at Disney is the tram that takes you back to your car. That's
back to the park.
That's the one I'm waiting for all day long. Yeah. But my kids love Disney. My wife loves Disney. Okay. So by proxy, I show up.
Yeah. There's only a few types of people that go to Disney.
What's that?
Yeah.
I said there's only a few types of people that go to Disney, and Bradley's the one where he gets dragged there by the rest of his family, which is what I am as well. But there's also the adults who discovered Disney as adults, and they dress like babies when they go in. Yeah. And then there's
that's
the
a whole
forever
subculture.
That's a whole subculture. And then there's the forever Disney fan who was raised on Disney, and they go in and they look like normal people for the most part, but they love it. Yeah. So those are I think really the only 3 types of categories of people at Disney.
When we are sponsored by Disney, we're going to have to edit this episode. But right now, that's all truth. Tyson spitting truth from the pulpit of truth.
That's right.
Is there one thing that you would want to do that kind of corresponds with that Carpe Diem midlife crisis thing? It could be a trip. It could be a purchase. It could be a hobby.
Yeah.
Do you know what that might be yet, or do you have any ideas?
I think the dog thing is kind of fresh, because I know we were kind of pushing that off until maybe like later, like February or March. And when you have these kind of stories of my son or my best friend's son passing totally randomly, totally unexpected, it's kind of I think I would really regret if I was like, let's just wait, and and something were to happen, and then it was kind of like that's all she ever wanted, and I was just holding out until March, and for no other real reason than just like convenience. And it's like everything in life, getting married, having kids, there is no perfect timing, right? There is no real like, okay, now I'm financially stable, now let's have kids. Like that time that never comes. Like My life is
Right.
totally in order. Now I'll get married. Life doesn't work that way. So I think, along those same lines, that's something that's been swirling around my head. But don't tell my daughter.
What kind of
she's not
dog?
listening to this. Bichon Frise.
Is that what she wants, or that's what you chose?
No. It's what she wants. Hypoallergenic, fairly low energy, very cuddly, small dog. So not
Is that like a Shih Tzu kind of?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the Bichon Frise.
You know what? I'm going to pull it up. They're white and puffy.
I like
very,
that
very
because
cute.
I actually just this weekend was having the dog thought because I'm don't bring more mess into your house than necessary type of person.
It's one of these guys.
Okay.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
They also don't shed. So
That's
hypoallergenic,
very nice.
don't shed.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be known for like anxiety, like helping. I don't know. There's something about them that helps kids with anxiety.
Cool.
So for both Loic and Ellis, that would be great.
Yeah.
Plus small dogs, small poops. Always good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending on what you feed them, I guess. I don't know. My 4-year-old, he can fill a toilet. I'll tell you that much.
That is crazy, right? Those kids like you, I was like,
what did you eat? A carpet? Is that where it went?
You don't hurt. You don't hurt after that. Like, I was same.
So
I was questioning the dog thing for my daughters too, because they love dogs. One of them is allergic, but she still loves them. The other one, it just like would spend all day with a dog. I'm just like, I know that this is going to end up being me taking care of it, and I don't want to. But like, I questioned it this weekend specifically. I was like, should I just do it? Like, be cool, dad, and get it, and then have to. William,
get two.
William's vote is
maybe more.
Your daughters are actually texting William right now, being like, "Tell him to say yes."
Yeah, no, it's just I mean, they'd be in here right now, like yippee
scurrying around,
scurrying around.
Shiloh's right next to me over here. She's chilling.
She is chilling. That's true. So something to think about. We have this new decent sized house for dogs to run around, and we have an acre, but it's filled with cactuses. So got to be careful with the dogs there. But that's part of midlife. I was going to say something, Bradley, about your midlife crisisness. This is what it is. It's like years like, let's go do the 4 days at Disney. And a part of me is like, let's go to the Great Barrier Reef. I love that idea. And and you guys know about it. And it's a thing we should see. And we definitely should see it one day. But also, every extracurricular dollar that we spend is me spending potentially your future comfort.
Right.
Like I don't have, both my cars are 10 years old, and I have looked at cars, and everyone's like, you deserve the car that you want. And I just get a family car again. But I'm like, both my 10-year-old cars work great. And if I spend 50, 80 grand on a car, that's 50 to 80 grand. That's not going to my kids when I pass. And then what? So that's where I'm torn, is like, they probably would prefer memories of their family having a great time to $50,000 when we're gone. That's my hope.
Yeah.
But I do want to set them up as well. So that's where it's like, what do I do? What do we do?
We hypothesized that Shiloh ripped the cord out after all the talking about dogs.
It wasn't her. Don't blame her. She's an angel.
Okay.
I just lost
Shiloh.
my internet.
My bad.
But I'm on my phone now,
okay.
So we'll see what happens.
That'll work. It's a good call. Nice pivot. I was going to say that I think maybe that's what the crisis is. Oh, you want to get a wiener dog?
Yeah, they're so
as a
funny.
Companion to Shiloh?
Yes, and a Chihuahua. Maybe some sort of a wolf dog. I don't know. Also a cat.
4
maybe
dogs?
2 cats. Probably some fish. A lizard. A hedgehog would be kind of fun. Snakes, they're kind of weird, but I've always used to like them a lot. So some snakes.
I think if you keep all those animals near each other, you won't have them all after a while.
The circle of life will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe we're watching William's midlife crisis right, like on air right now, as he's like on his way to the pet store as soon as we end the call.
That's why he switched over to his phone, so he can just bolt out the door, get right in the car. Oh my gosh.
When I was growing up, my next door neighbor had like a zoo. Sorry.
What you got? No, say it again. Your next door neighbor?
My next door neighbor had like a zoo when I was growing up. So it was absolutely amazing. He had African lungfish. He had sugar gliders, so many snakes, dogs, cats, ferrets. One time the cat had babies and then the ferrets got the cats and killed most of them. That was not my most pleasant childhood memory, but most of it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Snapping turtle. He had a snapping turtle in the backyard.
I love
when he was out of town, I would feed his fish.
I love all of that. Yeah. How does he go out of town? That's what I was like. That's part of having a dog is it's like, we want to go on a vacation. Okay. Well, it's going to cost $8,000 to board your dog for a week at a nice place.
He befriended me, his 10-year-old next door neighbor, to take care of him.
Bradley, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that maybe the crisis isn't so much like a thing, like who am I, or am I successful? But the crisis is the indecision. What do I do now? Do I go this way or that way? Maybe the crisis isn't so much about like who we are per se, but more about kind of like, okay, like we've been talking about, which way do you go? We're in the middle of life. Does that mean you buckle down and you say, okay, let's play it safe the next couple of years? Or do you say, no, we're only in the middle of life. Let's ramp it up. We only got a couple days left. So let's go enjoy it. So maybe we're kind of answering my question, which I appreciate. That's the whole point of bringing a question to you guys. It's kind of like that crisis. Maybe at least for me, it's more about like, which direction do I go? Let's go with the kids to Europe, but also we need to save money for the kids. Let's get a dog. But also, that's going to, take more time and energy in this thing, so maybe that's what it is. It's like the decisions were easier when we were younger, maybe because there weren't as many variables. But as we get older, naturally, with kids and family and age and all that and money and thinking about the future, maybe that's the paralysis of decision kind of is the crisis.
Yeah. And I think that's what the quarter life crisis is as well. It's like, do I get married? Do I go to school? Do I get a job? Well, should I hold out for a better job? Should I travel? Should I take a gap year? Should I and all of this stuff you're thinking is going to affect your future forever and ever and ever for the course of time. And it does, but I think that you can get positive from all of it. So, So what's the answer here, William? Dogs?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a dog is nice, and you guys are crazy for not already having one.
Fair enough.
You should probably talk to your therapist about that. But
fair.
I think that the answer is open for interpretation still, but you got to get out there and see stuff. And I think that most of the time people have these or have like really big midlife crises, because they don't have that experience in their life already. So like the playing it safe part, kind of like the longer you play it safe, then the more likely it is that you will have an explosive midlife crisis because you don't have those experiences in your life to draw from. So I think that the answer is go hard, carpe diem, live life to the fullest all the way through so that you can avoid having to blow up everything in your life during midlife and then go do that stuff that you should have done all along anyway.
I love it. And with that, perfect way to close. Thank you, William. Thank you, Bradley. Thank you, everyone who's listening. We are the Midlife Crisisses. Till next time, see ya.
Peace. Thanks, guys.